it is 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for coming today, everyone. My name is Chelsea Smith. I am your one and only learning and development specialist here at Action Benefits. And today we're going to talk about how to complement Original Medicare with some of the other benefit options that are out there for your clients. I am joined today, as you already know, or you love her, my friend Debbie Brown. Debbie, give the people what they want.
Hey guys, yep, Debbie Brown's here in the making here. As you know, I'm in the individual team, which is under 65 in Medicare. If you have anything, not only can you contact me, but I got a whole great group of team members on my team that can help you out with whatever you need. Take it away, Chelsea.
Let's learn about some ways to benefit or to complement your benefits with Medicare. We are going to cover these things today in our webinar, explaining Medicare supplement and or Medigap, same thing, policies, how to enroll, switch, and drop from a MedSup, the costs and functions of MedSups, and then some prescription drug plans, the other way you can complement Original Medicare as well. So let's start with supplements and or Medigap. So supplements and Medigap, those two words mean the same thing. I usually hear supplement more than Medigap, but that might just be me. So what is a supplement plan? A supplement plan is a policy that helps pay some of the healthcare costs that Original Medicare doesn't pay for, like their deductibles, co-payments, co-insurance, stuff like that. Some supplement policies also cover medical care when traveling outside of the US. We'll get into those details in a little bit. If a beneficiary is enrolled in Original Medicare and buys a supplement policy, then Medicare shares some of the Medicare approved amounts for covered healthcare costs, and then the supplement policy pays its share. So really that means that Medicare pays primary and then MedSups pay secondary. So Medicare will cover expenses first, and the MedSup swoops in and covers anything that plain old Medicare might not cover. So it's kind of like an addition onto regular Medicare. So you do have to have parts A and B in order to have or apply for a supplement plan. Supplement plans do, these are the things that they do to have or do require. So they do require parts A and B, like I just said, to enroll. So if you are enrolling a client for the first time, make sure that they know and they have parts A and B before you start trying to enroll them. Maybe you could shop with them if you wanted, but make sure that they are enrolled before you actually try to apply for that plan with them. They are sold through private insurance carriers. They are not sold through the federal government like parts A and B are. So keep that in mind. If your client says, oh, the federal government is selling this to me, kind of suspicious, don't let them do that. As I said before as well, they do act as secondary payers. So like I said, Medicare does pay first, and the supplemental coverage doesn't replace Medicare. So they pay first, and then supplemental MedSups come after and pay anything else. They do charge a monthly premium. It does not come for free, unfortunately. And these plans also can come guaranteed renewal if they are a standard plan. So those are all the things that they do. And then supplement plans do not substitute or replace Original Medicare, like I said before. Otherwise they'd be paying primary. So they don't pay primary, so they do not replace Medicare. They do not cover your premiums. It should say premiums for Part A and B, I guess, but most people don't. As you probably know, most people don't pay premiums for Part A anyway. So it doesn't cover your Part B premium. You do still have to pay that in addition to the premiums you would pay for your MedSup plan. They do not offer spousal coverage. So even if you're married, each person needs their own MedSup plan that is separate from one another, which could be of a benefit to your clients, really, depending on what their situations are. I know from personal experience and from experience working here that married couples tend to want to have the exact same plan as their spouse. That might not always be advantageous for them. So in this case, there's no way that they can sign up and one plan together. They have to get their own separately, even if it's the same. If they both go for like plan A, for example, they both have to get their own separate contracts with plan A. So Part D is necessary for drug coverage if your client wants that coverage type. Back in the day, before my time of working in health insurance, there were some med sup plans that had drug coverage. Those are not a thing anymore. You might stumble upon someone who got a plan in, like, I think it's 2006 was the last time those were offered. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was 2006 was the last time they were offered. So maybe someone might still have one floating around out there, grandfathered, I don't know. But those are not available to sell anymore. So if you sell someone a med sup plan, it's probably going to be a really good idea to bring up a Part D or a standalone PDP to that client in that enrollment process. And supplement plans don't play nice with with Medicare Advantage plans. You cannot have a Medicare Advantage plan and a supplement plan. That's illegal. So if one of your clients comes to you and says they have both, they're confused. Or if you're trying to sign them up for both, you can't have both at the same time. So keep those things in mind. Those are the kind of overarching do's and do nots of med sups. So what is not covered with a med sup plan? I like to just have it all out there before I start talking, because I'll forget to click. Supplemental policies generally don't cover these things that are on your screen here. They don't cover long-term care, private duty nursing, prescription drug coverage, like I said before, and vision, dental, hearing. However, there are some carriers who offer dental, vision, hearing packages or buy-ups, and some of them even offer a discount if you have a med sup plan to purchase those dental, vision, hearing plans alongside of those med sup plans. So if your client is interested in any of those things on your screen here, you're going to have to try to find some alternative options to get those things covered for them. So these items on the screen here are not and don't mix with med sup plans. They're not the same thing, or they're kind of, some of them can be added on, like as we talked about before, a PDP can be added on, but they are not a med sup plan, two different things. So Med Advantage plans, like we talked about before, no matter if they're HMO, PPO, fee for service, doesn't matter. You cannot have a Med Advantage plan and a med sup plan at the same time. So those two don't mix. PDP, they are two separate things. They can mix, but they are two separate things. Medicaid is not, you can't have Medicaid and a med sup plan. You'd probably go for a D-SNP at that point. Employer union plans, including the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program, that is not the same as a med sup. TRICARE, veterans benefits, those are not med sup plans. Long-term care insurance policies, again, you can have one with a med sup plan. They're not mutually exclusive, but they're not the same thing. And Indian Health Service, tribal and urban Indian health plans are not med sup plans, two different things.
Just keep in mind, if you have a med sup plan and then during AEP you enroll them in a PD or an MAPD plan, that plan will not cancel your med sup plan. So they're going to have to contact the carrier that they are using for their supplemental and cancel it. Keep in mind, if you enroll in a Blue Cross MAPD plan, they will go back and cancel it the effective date of that MAPD plan. But if it's with a different carrier, they're only going to cancel it the day you call. So just keep that in mind.
Assuming they'll then charge you for both, right? And I'm assuming the client's not going to like
Yep.
that. Okay.
Yep.
Good to know. Good to keep in mind. How would you best describe Medicare supplement plans? There is only one correct answer this time around. Sometimes I'll mess with you guys and I'll make it so there's more than one correct answer, but I will give you a hint. There's only one correct answer this time. Okay. So if you said C, that med sups are secondary payers and cover some or all of the cost sharing from original Medicare, you would be correct. Obviously you cannot have B and C at the same time. Medicare supplement plans don't replace original Medicare. You do have to have parts A and B in order to get med sup, and med sups you have to have purchase certificates. So A and D are the same thing essentially. So yep, you must have A and B to get a med sup, and med sups are not primary. Medicare pays primary. So awesome. Keep up the good work, guys. If you have any questions, like I said, throw them into the chat. but it looks like we are all good for now. So let's head
Hey,
into,
Chelsea,
oh, go
I just
ahead.
want to also add that we cannot do, or you, even an agent, if they do it online, you cannot do an enrollment without having the A and B information. I know sometimes we get calls where, hey, they just applied. Can I go ahead and enroll the member? You have to have your A and B number, your MBI number for the member before we can even do enrollment online.
And I learned the other day, just because your member has their Medicare card, that doesn't always necessarily mean that they have both Met A and B, right? Didn't we run into that the other day?
Yeah, sometimes they'll get their card, but they only have A on it because they're still enrolling in B. Normally, if they have the MBI and MBI number, we can enroll them if they have Part A, and then if they're getting Part B, as long as they're an effective date for Part B. However, we have had cases where the Part B didn't go into effect until the following month, and the member didn't find out until after they went to have services. So let's say they put in that their effective date was 2/1, went to the doctor in February, come to find out their Part B wasn't affected until March. So we had to go through the carrier, ask them to change the plan to an effective date of 3/1. So it's really important we know what effective dates they're having.
Right, yes, absolutely. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I remembered that correctly and before I said something. Thank you, lady. All right. So sub policies, enrolling, switching, and dropping. So beneficiaries are probably going to want to enroll in med sup plans. Most of the time they want to enroll in them right at their initial enrollment period or IEP. Or sometimes they also like the Medicare Supplement Open Enrollment Period, or the MAOEP, which is after they enroll in parts A and B. During open enrollment is an option as well, but it is probably in the best interest of your client to sign up as soon as possible, even though med subs do not have any late enrollment penalties. I know that in last week when we did Medicare fundamentals, we talked about Part D late enrollment penalties and A, they do obviously they do exist for those. They do not exist for med sup. So there's not much of an argument for that in like a money saving aspect there, where you're not going to get charged a late enrollment for having for enrolling late in a med sup, but it usually is still in the best benefit of the of your client to sign up earlier to have that coverage, and because there might be some guaranteed issue things going on there. If they miss those windows, they're still able to sign up outside of open enrollment, but some of those plans again might not be guaranteed issue. And the beneficiary might have to go through some like underwriting, medical underwriting. We'll talk a little bit about the different types of issues or attainments that you can have later on in our show. But if you do wait and you do have to go through that medical underwriting, as you probably already know, that can either increase the premium, or if it's bad enough, if they do bad enough on the underwriting, they can just be denied a policy altogether. They don't have to take you after that point, as you probably already know. So making sure that's clear to your clients is I think it's very important. Because I don't think a lot of people, I didn't know that before I started working here. So that might be a thing to make sure that's clear to your clients before you go on. Deb?
Just keep in mind, Blue Cross does guarantee accept everybody. Doesn't
Ooh.
matter what tier they are or what kind of, I mean, they could have, cancer, they could have, horrible MS, they could have any kind of illness. They would be rated the tier 3 and they would be guaranteed accepted. Blue Cross is the only one that guaranteed accepts everybody. So when you question the rates as to why the rates are so high, now you know why, because they are still considered as a last resort for insurance. So just FYI on that.
So good to know for your clients who might have a pre-existing condition like that, that Blue is probably their best bet to get onto that and stay at, it would be tier 3, but you still get on. But if, balances out for those of who may not have that issue and have to worry about that when they're getting their med sup plan.
If it was me, always try other carriers if you're doing a non-GI, because if they may get a lower rate, because Blue Cross rates are a little bit higher with their tier ratings, they may get a lower rate or a tier rate, but still be accepted. So this way, so don't do Blue Cross until you know for a fact that they can't get to any other carrier.
Yes, good call. You don't know your options till you look, right? So we brushed on it a little bit in the previous slide, but the best time to do that, to enroll is kind of that open enrollment period. That period is a 6-month period beginning when a beneficiary is 65 and enrolled in Part B. They are not subject to medical underwriting at that point, and there's no waiting, elimination, or probationary periods that can be included in these policies. Also keep in mind as well that beneficiaries who are under 65 and eligible for Medicare because of ESRD or some sort of disability can also apply for MedSup policies. They are not kind of like MAPDs and stuff like that. They're not exclusive to just people who are over 65. But carriers do not need to have every single MedSup plan that they sell available to those members who are not over 65. We'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to like the chart that'll show you all of the different MedSup plans, but keep that in mind as well. It kind of goes along with this portion, but also kind of goes along with the chart as well. So I like to bring it up more than once, that if you do happen to have a client like that, they aren't necessarily guaranteed to have all of the options that a carrier might offer. They do have to give them at least one. In my experience, it's plan A generally, but I don't want to say that and I don't have them all memorized. Usually it's A, not all the time is it A. Deb.
Also, just as a reminder, other carriers, if you're under age 65 and you're not in your so-called 6-month period of enrollment, you could be denied coverage. So just keep that in mind. Whereas once again, Blue Cross will accept anybody and everything. That's why the rates are so high for those plans. So
that is true too, and especially in that I might be like over using too broad of an umbrella, but that I think that that's something that a lot of that age group and people who are going to be looking for MedSups in that slot are not going to really be aware of, because I bet they did not expect to be shopping for a MedSup plan at this point in their lives. So I think as an agent, it's really important to have those little tidbits of information available to them so that they know, because they might go,
Yep.
and then they regret that later on.
Yep, that is correct. And then if you do go into an let's say you go on a MedSup plan when you're under 65. So when you turn 65, you have a whole new enrollment period.
That is true.
So you can now go back and get yourself to a plan G, which is the most popular right now, as a guaranteed issue. So, and it's important to do that at the time that they turn 65, because if they wait, say it's 8 months later, they turned 6 months, 8 months ago, and they want to lower their premium, guess what? They're now going to be a non-GI enrollment. So it's up to them to make sure they contact you when they turn 65 to make that plan change.
And same thing, until I started working in this area, I didn't know that. Like in my head, it would have been like, oh, you get initial means first and that's it. That's not necessarily true. You get another one, you get another opportunity to like reset once you turn 65. Which I
Yeah,
think
and
is pretty
a
cool.
lot of people think that, oh, I'll wait to the renewal because my rate, let's say their birthday turned 65 in February, Blue Cross rates change in April. Well, I'm not going to contact because my rate will change. I'll just stay on my plan. It's not going to work that way.
Right.
The only plan with Blue Cross, the only plan that they will change the rate at renewal to the correct rate is if they're on the old legacy plan. But that's it. Anything else you have to re-enroll.
Does loss of group retirement plans past the age of 65 count for general?
Yes, definitely. As long as the member is involuntarily dropping their coverage. So they're retiring.
Yes.
The group has no retiree benefits. The group will no longer offer them coverage. Then yes, they're going to be a GI enrollment. However, if the member says, no, I'm going to go on a med sup, I already have my A and B, and I don't want to pay this high premium for my group plan, you are now considered as a voluntary drop in your plan because you're still working with that group. So now you're going to be a non-GI if you're outside of your 6 months of new to Medicare, aging in, or new to Part B.
Yep, that's the key there, is whether or not it's voluntary or not.
Right.
Yes. So we will bring that up later, but I'm glad you asked, Michael. Yes, absolutely. That is good questions today, guys. All right. I love this. Keep them coming. Okay, so those who are over 65 are not the only ones eligible, like we just said. We have the ESRD thing. I just put a slide in here just to make sure that we have that covered. Michigan is it isn't requiring that there's at least one, I already said that. So Michigan does require that at least one sub plan is available to under 65 members. But like I said before, it might not be every single one. It might just be some of them. So keep that in mind. So guaranteed issue rights, again, I like to just put everything up. Guaranteed issue rights means that a person cannot lose coverage due to certain things in their health coverage. This applies when a beneficiary experiences a change in other health coverage, such as the loss of group health coverage. The MA plan leaves the area, quits an MA plan within the first year of joining. The med sub carrier goes bankrupt, or Medigap or MA carrier commits fraud or misleads the consumers. This is kind of, Michael, this kind of answers your sort of answers your question too, but this is like all of the reasons why this might be a thing. If that happens, then the carrier has to either sell a policy to the beneficiary that cover all of their pre-existing conditions and not use medical underwriting. So this is essentially answering the question. See, Michael must have already known where we were going and asked the question before we got to the slide, but this is all encompassing of all those situations where that would happen. These periods do last, the period that the person has to get the new plan after those first triggering points is usually about 63 days to move on to something else. So keep that in mind. That's not like generalized, that's set in stone somewhere, but usually they have about 63 days to get onto something else without a penalty or anything like that. Deb.
And also, if you have, let's say you have some parents, they live in Florida, they now have some health issues, they're coming to Michigan to live closer to family. Let's say they had an MAPD plan in Florida or Arizona, wherever they're at. Once they come to Michigan, and because they're going to lose that plan, they now have a qualifying event to enroll in a sub plan. So if they're unhealthy and they want to make sure they have some good coverage for health reasons, the sub plan might be where they need to go. So, or an MAPD, but they can do a sub plan as a guaranteed issue at that point.
Yes, yep, they're moving is that life event that does trigger
Yep.
being able to do things like that, or getting married or any of those other ones. All right, so non-guaranteed issue. So this is when medical underwriting would apply. So when you age into 80, geography, gender, and tobacco use are the things that they kind of look for. So these are the 4 reasons why someone might consider switching stop policies outside of one of those other reasons from the previous slide, is if they are paying for benefits they don't necessarily need, or they need more benefits, or they're not happy with their carrier and want to move to another carrier, or they want lower costs. So those, but again, as it says on the screen, that might not always work out, that lower cost thing, because if you're going outside that period, it might be that you get underwritten. So it's a balancing act at this point to decide if it's a good idea to move, but these are the options. So you do get a free look period. And free in this context doesn't mean like not paying for it, unfortunately. You do still have to pay. Free just means you can kind of like try it out before you actually move your plan, moving yourself from one to another. That you have 30 days to decide if you want to keep your new plan. The 30-day free look period starts when you get the new policy. You'll have to pay premiums for both of those sub plans at once. So again, the free portion of this is very like, I think it's deceptive to use the word free because it's not like free, but it's like free of red tape, I guess. It's a more apt term here. So once you apply for that new policy that you might move to, you do have to promise that you're going to cancel your old one or first one you already had. You cannot keep both for more than a month. You can, of course, just still stay with your old one after that 1 month free look period. But by the end of the month, you do have to get rid of one or the other. You could not keep both for longer than 30 days. Deb, did I miss anything on that? I don't think I did, but just in case.
Nope, you're good.
Cool. All right. So dropping a MedSup policies are guaranteed renewal except when your client doesn't pay their premiums. If information on the supplement application was found to be untrue, or if the carrier goes bankrupt. Policies bought prior to 1992 might not be guaranteed renewal. If you've got somebody who's had a MedSup policy since 1992, it's like 30 something years, dang, but that might, maybe that's a thing. Carriers must have state approval to terminate that policy, and the individual has the right to purchase another one. I don't even know if I am very curious if that's still a thing, but I keep it on there just in case. James turned 65 last month and has enrolled in parts A and B. Good job, James. He is concerned that his type 1 diabetes may impact the premiums he pays for MedSup plan. What might you say to reassure him? Let's see if I did my job well enough today. All right. Everyone's getting it right, so I'll just move on. Yes, he has guaranteed issue rights because he is in his initial enrollment period or open enrollment period. He just turned 65. He does not go through medical underwriting. He does have that guaranteed issue benefit for this portion of the time he is looking to get his coverage. So he is all good with his type 1 diabetes, at least for applying for MedSup plan. So, all right, how do these work then? Chelsea, we talked about how to get into them, but how do they work? Good question. So, here are how they're regulated by the federal government. They are standardized through most states. There's a couple states, I don't have them memorized. I think Wisconsin is one of them, where they're not standardized, but for the most part, they are standardized throughout the United States. They're A through N, and you'll notice some of the letters of the alphabet are missing because they have been done away with. Like we said, maybe one of you might have a client from that 1992 slide I said earlier, but for the most part, this is, especially when you're new, this is what you're going to be looking at here. When you're looking at MedSup plans, they go A through N. I do regret to tell you, unfortunately, some of them that are still on this chart are also not able to be sold anymore to anyone who was not eligible for Medicare previous to 2020. And that is C, and then E is not on this chart. But C can no longer be sold to anyone previous to 2020 who was not qualifying for Medicare previous to 2020. So keep that in mind. You'll also see as well that K and L have out-of-pocket limits that are a little different. And those are listed down there at the bottom. But all the stuff that you get from the plan are listed on, I don't know if I'm mirrored or not on your screen, but on that stage left there, those are all the benefits that you get. And then each different type of plan is on the y-axis, and if it's included or not, check marks, and so on and so forth. Like I said, they're standardized throughout the country for the most part, but this is kind of what you can expect. As you can see, there's that foreign travel that we mentioned earlier. There's the 3 pints of blood, and then you have the K and L. They only pay a percentage. So the whole thing, which is probably why they have the out-of-pocket limit attached to them as well. This chart is readily available like anywhere. You can just Google MedSup plan and you Google it. These charts are everywhere. So then where can I go in action to get these plans? What carriers do we work with that have these plans? You'll see them on the screen here. We have Blue, GTL, Humana, McLaren, Priority, UHC, and Wellaby. You will notice, I did mention this a little bit earlier. Every carrier has Plan A, you'll notice, and that's because the federal law says carriers have to have one that's available to them, and in Michigan, that is Plan A. So they're always gonna have Plan A, and then every other one is optional, but of course, as you can probably imagine, the market does kind of guide carriers here. The more popular plans, in my personal experience at least, are sold with just about all the carriers that we work with. Got your F and your G, and your N. Unfortunately, we can't do, so you can't sell C anymore unless the person was eligible prior to 2020. But most of them, most of the popular ones are available through all of our carriers. I think that's everything on that one. Yes, okay. So, and then let's talk about ratings really quick. There are 3 different ways that you can be rated when you are applying. So there is attained age, which means that the premium is based on the current age of the beneficiary when they enroll, but it can change as the beneficiary ages. The premium can increase over time. That's what age attained, as in like we start at the age that you are when you apply, and then it just can change as you get older. I'm assuming it's always going to go that way, you know? And then issue age means that the premium is determined when the beneficiary signs up, and that's it. It does not change. So again, that if your client is thinking about pricing and how much it's going to cost them in premium dollars, and they're worried about the future in terms of budgeting, looking at that issue age is a great tool and say, hey, at least you know that this premium is not going to change over time. And then we've got our community rated plans, and this means that the premium is based on the entire pool of people who are signed up for that particular plan. And they factor in, when they determine that premium, the age of the average, I'm assuming the mean average age of everyone who is in that plan, everyone where they live, and other things like that that might affect the price or that premium. So we also just organized the carriers we work with by how they generally tend to roll with their ratings. So most of our carriers do attained age. And then we got UHC over here, who are community rated. So again, keep those in mind when you are selling those plans to your clients. Make sure they're aware of those things. All right, we have another knowledge check. I put which of these statements is or are true? Okay, so the B and C are true. Let me try that again. Members with effective dates after 1/1/20 cannot sign up for plans that pay the Part B deductible. You have to have been eligible pre-2020 to get those plans, so B is true. And all MedSup plans will cover at least part of coinsurance for Part B services is also true. So A, B, and C are the correct answers here. Okay, so prescription drug plans. This is another way you can kind of jazz up parts A and B, add a little more coverage for them. Oftentimes, a Part D plan is tacked on to a MedSup plan, and then sometimes you're going to tack a Part D onto an MA plan as well if it does not have a Part D, or I'm sorry, excuse me, Part PDP coverage baked into it. You could add one of these as well, or you can just get A and B and Part D. You don't have to have a SUP or an MA plan to get a Part D plan. You just have to have A and B. Okay, I don't know if you're noticing a theme here, but Part D prescription drug coverage is available for everyone who has Part A and Part B.
You only need Medicare Part A to get a D. You do not need B to get a D.
Okay.
That is really important, because what happens is we get a lot of agents that will send us an application with a sub plan and a PDP plan, and they put new to Medicare, but they're not new to Medicare because Part A was effective maybe last year or like 2 years ago. They're just new to Part B. So we cannot use new to Medicare for a PDP when they're only new to Part B.
Okay,
So they
okay,
would have to do loss of group coverage for the PDP.
okay.
So that's a rule that you guys need to remember, is that you do not need. So if somebody only got Part A, they didn't get Part B because it's going to cost them a lot of money. They don't want it right now. They have a group plan. They don't want to pay for it, but they need a D coverage because maybe their group plan is not a credible drug card. Maybe it's self-funded, whatever the reason is, they can get a PDP with just a Part A.
You're correct, yes. We'll talk about critical coverage in a moment as well, so keep that in mind. That might be some of the reasons you are here today, to hear about some of that credible drug coverage stuff, because that was a big hot topic a couple months ago. You do usually pay a premium for your Part D coverage, your PDP, but not always. You just usually do. These plans are run by private companies that contract with Medicare. You cannot sign up through a Medicare Part D plan through CMS. They are covered through through carriers. Medigap coverages will not have drug coverage. We talked about that before. Way back in the day, there used to be some plans that had them back in, I think, like I said, I think it was 2006, that had Part D coverage baked into them. That is no longer a thing. So if your client wants that Part D coverage, good idea with that MedSup plan. Okay, I think I got everything there on that slide. Yes. Okay. So Medicare Part D is not automatically deducted from your Social Security benefit like it might be for other parts. So keep that in mind, that's going to be charged separately. Part D plans are optional. You don't have to have one. But if you do choose to have one and don't sign up during your open enrollment and not have credible drug coverage, if you choose not to have that credible drug coverage, you might incur a lifetime penalty. But like we were talking about before, if you have drug coverage through your employer, or have credible drug coverage in some other way, you will not have to pay that penalty. The only time you have to pay that penalty usually is when you don't have credible drug coverage. And we'll talk about what that means in a little bit. High income beneficiaries might be subject to IRMA. IRMA is deducted from your Social Security benefits and has no impact on the premiums charged by private carriers, but you can be charged it for Part D. So here is your chart here for how to determine your Part B premium if you were charged IRMA, or if you're going to be charged IRMA. So what they do is they look at your income from 2 years ago. So for us in 2025, that's 2023. And if it's over $106,000 for an individual or $212,000 for a couple, they are going to tack on an IRMA charge for you. And this one's a little different than A and B because each PDP premium is going to be different. So they don't base it on the premium you're paying necessarily. They just base it on the average premium over all of the premiums in the US. So they're going to take that average and then add in that number there next to the premium. So if you're making $212,000, $2,001 as a married couple, you're going to pay your PDP premium plus that $13.70. So on and so forth as you go on the chart, depending on how much you make. Anyway, so there are some cost sharing phases that are associated with Part D. If you've been in the market for a while, you know that it's different this year than it has been in previous years, and it has been different this year than last year. Things are changing, and it's for the betterment of your clients that these changes are happening almost usually. So there are 3 cost sharing phases now in Part D instead of the 4 that used to be back in the day when I first started doing this. The first stage is the deductible phase, and this is where you pay your deductible. No deductible can be higher than $590 for 2025. but each plan is going to be different. Some plans don't have a deductible at all, and you're just going to skip this phase and go right into the initial coverage phase. Depends on what your plan is. In this initial coverage phase, you will remain in this phase, or your client, I should say, remains in this phase until they reach the $2,000 out-of-pocket maximum, which is way less than it used to be. This is the big change that happened recently. And then brand new for 2025 is the catastrophic coverage change. So then after you hit that $2,000, you move into stage 3, which is the catastrophic phase. And in this phase, you are no longer responsible, or your client, I should say, is no longer responsible for any Part D drug costs. The manufacturer, Part D plan, and Medicare are responsible for the rest of the calendar year's costs instead. And this is different than last year. Last year, they paid 20, or the Part D plan paid 20, and the Medicare is responsible for the remaining 80. It's a little different this year. So if they have questions, this is what's different for this year. Oh, here's where I have the calculator link. Okay. So if you do have a late enrollment penalty for Part D, if beneficiaries don't enroll when they're first eligible, they will have to pay a penalty. Or if they have a break in credible coverage of more than 63 days. Late enrollment penalties are determined annually, based on, like we said, that average premium. And then they compound every month for that you're eligible and not enrolled. They continue for the entire time that you have Part D, and they just add that on to your premium. So Part D changes as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act. So just so that we're clear, I almost didn't talk about this slide, but I decided to keep it in. Anyway, these are the changes in the way that things shifted because of the Inflation Reduction Act, and that did change a lot about how Part D functioned. So back in 2023, there was a rebate that had to be paid back out to your clients if they chose to raise the price of the drug faster than the rate of inflation. This also limited copays to $35 a month for insulin and reduced the cost for adult vaccines. And then last year, we eliminated the 5% coinsurance for catastrophic phase and expanded the eligibility Part D full income subsidy benefits up to 100% of the federal poverty level. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the LIS in the next slide. In 2025, this year, we added the $2,000 out-of-pocket cap for Part D. And then from 26 to 29 is when the drug negotiation thing, you probably have heard of this. It's where we're going to pick out some of the most high-priced drugs that meet some qualifications, that don't have any generics, new stuff like that, negotiate them to be a little bit lower, and that will first go into play next year. That first round will have been negotiated, and that new price will be starting next year. So you've probably heard about this already. They ended the first round, and then this year Ozempic is on there. Ooh, so that'll be spicy. See how that ends up. So if you are not new to the PDP game, you probably had this thought cross your head at some point. So, how did that low income extra help subsidy thing change? That is because we no longer have that that partial and full level of LIS. So if you're someone who was in the game for a while, you might have had that. That's no longer a thing. You don't have the partial and full. It's just everyone gets full. And if you are new to the game here, it's a good idea to start wrapping your head around low income subsidies and extra help, because CMS proposed a new rule saying that everyone who during their discovery process with their client needs to bring up low income subsidies and extra help. So it's a good idea to get a handle on extra help and those low income subsidies. So this is a good way to do that. I'm just going to brush over them very, very broadly here. We do have another webinar, and the recording of it is on YouTube, or you can just keep track of the training calendar next time we talk about it. You can learn about it there. But it's on YouTube if you want to talk more about all of the programs. But because we're just doing ways to supplement Medicare, we're just going to talk about LIS for now. So Extra Help, as we talked about, or as I kind of alluded to, is a federal program that pays for some or most of the costs of Part D. It does pay their premiums, it does pay their deductibles, and it does reduce the copays for generic and brand name drugs. So that's, I don't know, because we don't know the exact way the rule is going to play out. That's probably all you need to be able to talk about during your discovery process with your clients. You can check that box that CMS will have, but just keep that in mind, whether you're new or old, that this might be a thing, probably will, I should say, be a thing you'll be required to talk about starting next year. All right, now let's check. Jasmine takes several maintenance medications to help control her cholesterol and blood pressure. She'd like to explore prescription drug coverage to reduce her out-of-pocket costs. Which of the following statements are true for Jasmine? So I'll just cut to it. All of these are true. Jasmine might have to meet a deductible, but she might not, depending on the plan coverage. She will have to, Part B is alluding to Irma. She might have to pay Irma if she makes over $106,000. And Jasmine will have no co-payments if her out-of-pocket costs exceed $2,000. That's new for this year. So it used to be a much higher number, but that is the case for Part D this year, is that they have that new out-of-pocket cost limit. So when is the initial enrollment periods for Part D? There's technically 4. While MedSup accounts might have different offerings for people who are disabled or have it for different reasons. These are the 4 ways that you can get initially Part D. So, and then like we talked about earlier, you have, if you have Part A, you can sign up for the Part D plan there. So newly eligible Medicare is one reason, newly eligible to Medicare due to being disabled under 65, already eligible for Medicare because you have a disability and is now turning 65, like Deb and I talked about earlier. And then having Part A, and then enrolling in Part B for the first time during your GEP, probably in that case, you had employer coverage that was covering your prescriptions. And that's why you had those things. So the time frames are over there on the right-hand side. So that's that chart there. And then the yearly times that you can enroll for Part D is during the annual election period, as I'm sure you're probably aware of, October 15th through December 7th, and the changes done during that time take place Jan 1. And then you have the January 1st through March 31st Medicare Advantage open enrollment period. And here you only are allowed 1 change during this time period, and the changes take effect the first of the month after the request gets put through. And then and then that's in bold here, just because I want to make sure that part is clear. Disenrollment from Medicare Advantage plans and returning to original Medicare allows you to join a PDP. Because that was a question a couple of times ago. So I wanted to make sure that that was made clear. Deb, is there anything you want to add, or is this all good?
Just a couple of things. Number one, just so you know, if you use the MAOEP to go to a PDP and original Medicare, and you want to add a supplement plan, if they're past that 6 months, then they will be a non-GI enrollment. The other thing is too, is I know a lot of you do Blue Cross supplement plans. Keep in mind their open or their renewal is 4/1. That is not an open enrollment period where a member can change to a different sub plan. Unfortunately, changing the rates is how it is. They can move to a different plan, but they are going to be non-GI if they're out of that 6 months. We do have other alternatives that we can talk with you as an agent. My team has got some good kind of talk through things that might be opportunities that your member can have to make a plan change that will work for them. So if you want any more information, just give our team a call and we can help you out. I know the rates are pretty pretty high, but make sure you know that it's a rate, it's a plan increase, it's an age increase, and then if you got the DVH, it's going to be that $5 extra for that DVH. So, but you can contact our team and we'll walk you through some ideas.
Yeah, there was a lot of moving and shaking with the premiums and the costs this year for sure. So just I always say call the individual team for just about anything because I just like talking to them, but that is a good reason to call and talk to them is something like that. So, and then we have special enrollment periods for PDPs as well. So if you lost your other credible drug coverage or other exceptional circumstances, you could have some other opportunities to switch there. So some of the key things, if I were to take anything away from this presentation today, original Medicare, MedSup, and Part D combined together to kind of give you all I don't want to say all because we have ancillary products that cover long-term care, cancer, stuff like that. So it's not all, but give you a pretty good foundation of coverage through original Medicare, MedSups, and Part D. It's really the best option to tell your clients, if possible, to enroll during when their initial enrollment period, especially with Part D, to avoid some of those late enrollment penalties unless they're keeping that credible coverage through their employer. Combining these types of coverage may be helpful for members who prefer to pay upfront for care, especially for those who are budgeting around a fixed income. So if anything, keep those things in mind from, if you remember anything from today, I remember those 3 key points. Thank you for coming. Thank you for spending some time here with me today to learn more about MedSup plans. Debbie, is there anything you want to tell the folks at home before we part with them?
No, just like Chelsea said, thank you for joining us. We are 7 strong on the individual team. So if you have any questions, concerns, or just want to chit chat with us, just give us a call in the individual team. Thank you so much for your business. We appreciate it.